Pope Francis's funeral set for this Saturday at 4 p.m. Hong Kong time. The MTR proposes an average fare hike of 9.4% for the Airport Express. And the U.S. intends to impose tariffs of up to 3,521% on solar panels from Southeast Asia. Hello and welcome to TVB News. I'm Melissa Hekalea. Pope Francis's funeral will be held this Saturday at 10 a.m. or 4 p.m. Hong Kong time at St. Peter's Basilica. That's according to a statement released by the Vatican today. Meanwhile, the Vatican is observing the sede vacanta period, which began when the death of Pope Francis was announced on Monday. As part of this period, the giant bronze doors to the Apostolic Palace are half closed and bells are rung. This as countries honor the late Pope, flying their flags at half-mast. The 88-year-old pontiff suffered a stroke, which led to a coma and heart failure. Tracy Furness has more.
The Vatican's bronze bell that overlooks St. Peter's Square rang out Monday to mark the death of Pope Francis. It is also the start of sede vacante, a series of rites that come into play in the period between the end of one pontificate and the election of a new pope. As part of the sede vacante period, the giant bronze doors to the Apostolic Palace are half closed, but the Vatican continues to operate and visitors can still use the half-closed doors. Another key tradition after a pope dies is the sealing of the Pope's Vatican apartment. Cardinal Kevin Farrell oversaw the sealing of Pope Francis's apartment, officials draping a red ribbon through the door handles. Then they poured liquid wax on the bow and impressed Francis's papal seal to keep it closed. Farrell, followed by Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State, and the substitute or chief of staff, Archbishop Edgar Penna-Parra, then tested the big doors to make sure they were locked. It wasn't immediately clear if Francis's other apartment in the Dumas Santa Marta Hotel was also sealed. Francis chose to live there in the second-floor suite rather than the Apostolic Palace. In St. Peter's Square, the Vatican held a rosary prayer in its first public commemoration following Francis's death. Vatican daily newspaper headline reading, "The Lord called the Holy Father Francis." It is said that Pope Francis decreed that he will be buried in St. Mary Major Basilica in a simple underground tomb. The basilica is home to Francis's favourite icon of the Virgin Mary, to whom he was particularly devoted. His funeral will take place on April 26, the Vatican announced today. The cardinals will also be planning the conclave to elect a successor to Pope Francis. Meanwhile, across the world, flags were flown at half-mast Monday to mark the death of the pontiff. In London, from Buckingham Palace to the Prime Minister's official residence at 10 Downing Street and the city's Catholic Cathedral. Washington, D.C. too, as President Donald Trump remembers the Pope, calling him a good man. India's presidential palace and other government buildings also flew their flags at half-mast to honour the Pope. But Francis never set foot in his homeland, Argentina, after he became Pope in 2013. He never elaborated much on his decision to steer clear of Argentina, but Vatican insiders and experts see it as an effort to avoid getting swept up in the polarizing politics that characterized his country. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
China does not have diplomatic ties with the Vatican, but expressed condolences over the death of Pope Francis during today's Foreign Ministry press briefing.
China expresses condolences over the passing of Pope Francis. In recent years, China and the Vatican have maintained constructive engagement, conducted useful exchanges, and China stands ready to work with the Vatican for continued improvement of China-Vatican ties.
And in Hong Kong, residents can pay tribute to Pope Francis by writing personal messages in a condolence book placed in the Catholic Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception on Cane Road. Bishop of Hong Kong, Cardinal Stephen Chow, arrived at the cathedral at 10 this morning and was seen bowing before the late pontiff's portrait before leaving a message in the condolence book. Auxiliary Bishop Joseph Ha similarly paid his respects, with the pair departing some 15 minutes later. Some among the faithful stayed behind to pray in the church, with many recalling the Pope's love for the poor and the marginalized. And Wall Street weakened on Monday amid mounting worries about U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war and his criticism of the Federal Reserve Chairman. Daniel Rao reports.
The S&P 500 sank 2.4% in another wipeout on Monday. That yanked the index 16% below its record set 2 months ago. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 971 points, or 2.5%. Losses for Tesla and Nvidia helped drag the Nasdaq Composite down 2.6%. Perhaps more worryingly for investors, US government bonds and the value of the US dollar also sank as prices retreated across US markets. This is alarming as treasuries and the dollar have historically strengthened during episodes of nervousness. The pullback came as US President Donald Trump continued his tough talk on global trade and ramped up criticism of US Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. In a post on Truth Social, Trump called Powell Mr. Too Late, a major loser, and urged the Fed to cut interest rates immediately, warning of a looming economic slowdown. He also hinted again at the idea of Powell's dismissal, a notion White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett recently said was under review by Trump's team. The Fed has been resistant to lowering rates too quickly. This as it does not want to allow inflation to re-accelerate after slowing nearly all the way down to its 2% goal from more than 9% 3 years ago. A move by Trump to fire Powell would likely rattle financial markets. While Wall Street loves lower rates largely because they boost stock prices, the bigger worry would be that a less independent Fed would be less effective at keeping inflation under control. Such a move could further weaken, if not destroy, the United States' reputation as the world's safest place to keep cash. Dan Orell, TVB News.
The United States said it intends to impose tariffs of more than 3,500% on solar panels from Southeast Asia. Washington said the move is aimed at countering Chinese subsidies and dumping in the sector. Solar panel suppliers from Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, and Vietnam will be affected if the tariffs are ratified at a June meeting of the International Trade Commission. A year ago, the U.S. and other solar manufacturers conducted anti-dumping and countervailing duty investigations. The Southeast Asian companies are said to have engaged in unfair practices that affected the U.S. solar market. A particular concern was Chinese-headquartered companies operating in the ASEAN region. The U.S. Department of Commerce said the recommended tariffs on solar cells are specifically aimed at these transnational subsidies. The tariffs may range from 40% to 3,521%. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is in India on a largely personal visit. Traveling with his wife Usha and 3 children, he met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi and then visited Jaipur. Vance and Modi met as New Delhi looks to avoid U.S. tariffs, negotiate a bilateral trade deal with Washington, and strengthen ties with the Trump administration. The U.S. is India's largest trading partner, and the two countries are now holding negotiations aiming to seal a bilateral trade agreement this year. India is among the countries for whom U.S. tariffs were paused for at least 90 days. In Jaipur, the family was greeted with an elaborate ceremony of colorfully dressed dancers and decorated elephants. Vance is set to deliver a speech from Rajasthan International Center in Jaipur, where he may provide more details on the trade talks. Still ahead, clinical trials for spinal cord injury patients using advanced therapy products. And AI-assisted animation production experience for university students. The MTR Corporation has proposed a 9.4% rise for the Airport Express fare. The hike is set to take effect in June. Samantha Lee reports.
The Airport Express fares have remained unchanged for 8 years, with the last increase being the only price adjustment implemented since the rail link came into service in 1998. The MTR Corporation has submitted its new fare adjustment proposal to the Legislative Council. It calls for an average increase of 9.4%, which means for adults using an Octopus card, the cost of each trip between urban areas and the airport or the Asia Road Export Station will go up by $5 to $10. The fare for a single journey ticket between the airport and Hong Kong Station will increase from $110 to $120. A trip to the airport from Kowloon Station will cost $105, while that from Tsing-yi Station will cost $73. For adults not using an Octopus card, they have to pay $10 to $15 more for their single journey tickets. So what do the public think about the fare hike?
I think it's good value for money. Yeah, it is, yeah.
Why?
It's about 10 euros, right? Or maybe a little bit more. That's good value. I think it's good. I think Amsterdam is more expensive, to be honest.
But some residents think otherwise. This local woman said 9.4% is quite a large increase. She said she might consider other means of transport, such as taking a taxi while traveling with her family or friends. This mainland tourist said the fare hike might not bother visitors too much, but it would add to the financial burden of local residents.
The train to Hong Kong.
The MTR Corporation said Hong Kong's cumulative inflation has reached 14% since the last fare adjustment. The Airport Express made 13 million trips last year, with a total revenue of around $800 million, marking a 20% increase year on year. But the railway company said the Airport Express faces many challenges, including competition from other forms of transport and evolving business travel patterns. Its passenger traffic has only recovered to about 70% of the pre-pandemic level. The company added it will invest in renewing the Airport Express and will offer special deals to passengers, such as ticket package options. The new fares will be adopted by the MTR board after consultation, and approval by the Executive Council is not needed. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
The Hong Kong Polytechnic University plans to conduct clinical trials for spinal cord injury patients using advanced therapy products, or ATPs. The university has established an ATP laboratory that focuses on clinical research, including cell and gene therapy. Memo Singhai reports.
This is the Polytechnic University's Advanced Therapy Product Laboratory. Established with funding of about $30 million, the lab focuses on manufacturing cell therapy products for spinal cord injuries in this first phase of work. The lab has installed equipment to avoid cross-contamination, including 6 carbon dioxide incubators and 1 grade A isolator. PolyU collaborates with 2 other parties, a biotechnology enterprise and Prince of Wales Hospital, in clinical trials for spinal cord injury. The aim is to give patients new hope. It starts with clinical trials, which will use human leukocyte antigen-matched umbilical cord blood supplied by the enterprise to produce umbilical cord blood-derived mononuclear cells. The enterprise will work with the hospital on human leukocyte antigen matching. The university will deliver lab-produced cells to the hospital. Meanwhile, doctors will recruit spinal injury patients and conduct umbilical cord blood-derived mononuclear cell transplant procedures. PolyU will then offer post-surgery rehabilitation training to patients to enhance treatment outcomes. The university will launch clinical trials once it has obtained the relevant license from the Department of Health.
Hong Kong has been putting a lot of efforts and investment in these kind of biomedical innovations. Previously, I would say that we are quite lagging behind compared to other local regions. But I hope that we can push this kind of technology forward. With these kind of ATP labs, we can do a lot more clinical trials. Particularly in the university, we have a lot of professors who have a lot of basic research or preclinical research.
The university will also provide a training laboratory as a training site, hoping to nurture more biopharmaceutical talent in Hong Kong to promote the city's development in medical technology. Memos 9, TVB News.
Invest Hong Kong presented a homegrown animation to international investors visiting Hong Kong. The project not only provided the young creative team with hands-on experience, but also helped with nurturing the city's local talent. Celine Chan was there.
Audiences followed the little girl's footsteps to rediscover Hong Kong in a refreshing way. The 1.5-minute animation was screened at the Wealth for Good and Hong Kong Summit in front of over 400 influential global family office principals, visionary leaders, and industry pioneers to showcase the city's soft power. The project, from storyboarding to animation and production, was produced entirely by a 10-member team consisting of students, graduates, and teaching staff from the Hong Kong Metropolitan University's Department of Creative Arts. This scene with Victoria Harbour's neon skyline morphed into ink wash paintings took nearly 2 months to perfect. Suki, who is in charge of the scene, deemed it a project of a lifetime and a precious opportunity, finding it surreal that her work as a student was being featured in such a high-profile event. The project's director Kai Chul, now a graduate running his own animation studio, said they were given free rein and there were much less constraints compared to general commercial projects. Just as in many other industries, the team experimented with AI-assisted workflows and utilized technology to streamline idea generation and music composition, which allowed the team to focus more on post-production tasks such as sound mixing and mastering. The university integrated AI tools into its curriculum, teaching students to leverage AI as supplements, not replacements, for human creativity.
We have integrated some AI tools or platform that in our current curriculum, so that our students need to practice and learn the basic things about AI. But like working on the concept art design in the pre-production animation workflow. But at the same time, I think we will also teach the student to keep their personal artistic sense. That's very important in the future.
The school said it previously collaborated with different institutions, including local museums, to allow its students to put their knowledge into practice. The school said it will continue to look for more opportunities to allow its students to accumulate more hands-on experience. Celine Chan, TVB News.
The Hong Kong Jockey Club Charities Trust has allocated over $400 million for the rollout of a project which aims to provide free music and sports programs to more than 8,000 students at primary schools in low-income neighborhoods. The pilot program began in September last year. Jackie Lin spoke with the beneficiaries.
Striking a chord and playing for change. Chloe here is of Filipino descent and studies at a primary school in Kwai Tsing District. In September last year, the Hong Kong Jockey Club launched its pilot program of Project Muse at her school, offering opportunities to take music instrument lessons free of charge.
Not everyone has a chance to play violin, and I'm so glad I have a chance to play. Learning violin is not that easy, and it's valuable. It's expensive for us. I think the music helped her a lot to nurture her character. She changed a lot in playing the violin. She became more dedicated now and more calmer.
Caden from another Shamshui Post School is another beneficiary from the pilot scheme, which allows the primary 2 student to take free weekly clarinet classes. Caden's mom said as her son has a hearing impairment, it meant even more when he is able to play the instrument. Caden is also being coached by members of the Hong Kong basketball team under the program. Transitioning from a pilot to a 6-year school-based music and sports education program, the Jockey Club scheme also sets sights on eventually offering scholarships for talented students under the scheme to take overseas training.
is unique in a way is that it's a 3-tier program. The first tier is a taster program for the whole school. So in a way that it's music and sports for all. So it's fun-filled programs, so they get exposed to music and sports. The second tier is they will be able to have more continuous music and also sports training. Students with potential, we will be able to provide them with scholarships, master classes, or even overseas training.
The program aims to expand to 15 primary schools in the 2026 to 27 school year. It is also expected to benefit more than 8,000 students with continuous or advanced music or sports training. Jackie Ling, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.